I'm delighted to welcome you to the Essentials of Entrepreneurship Conference on behalf of the Gladstone T. Whitman 49 Endowment Fund, the PSTV Econ 339 class, and the Policy Studies program. I'm delighted to introduce our first speaker at the conference, Dr. Charles Schramm. Formerly president of the Kauffman Foundation, he is now University Professor at Syracuse University. Dr. Schramm is an internationally recognized authority on innovation, entrepreneurship, and economic growth. Please join me in warmly welcoming Dr. Carl Schramm.
The economy you're going into is nothing like the economy I went into when I got out of college. Nothing much like it at all. Well, when I got out of college, nobody in their right mind was thinking about starting a business. What you were thinking about was either going to graduate school, which I did to avoid the draft, or you were thinking about going to work at General Electric, General Motors, Eastman Kodak, maybe the Chase Manhattan Bank. So what's the average age when people start businesses in the United States? 39. That's the average age at which people start businesses. They're the highest successful, except for people who are 55 or older when they start businesses. The most successful entrepreneurs are people who have worked longer in companies. Their job tenure is longer. They've worked in one employer for at least 7.5 years, and they've worked for other employers for at least 15 years. They have a much deeper network. If you had venture capital behind a new company, the chances were 8 in 10 that you were going to an IPO. You were taking your company to the public market to investors. Now, the chances are, if you get out with your venture capital investors, you have sold your company to Google or Microsoft or one of the other big companies. The government controls so much of our life. And as an entrepreneur, if you were to start a business tomorrow, you would feel the full weight of the government's intrusion. But regulation was the single biggest bar to the creation of new companies. And that's the economy you guys inherit. But the best thing you can do is equip yourself for the economy in general, and just hold in your mind the notion that in 20 or 30 years, what we conceive of is entrepreneurial capitalism may still exist, but the way we go about expressing our own creativity in business is likely to be different completely. So before you invest too heavily in this idea, you should carry, as I said at the very first sentences, a certain amount of skepticism into this. It's your career. You've got to get some experience. You have to develop networks, and you have to develop skills that provide you with the context in which you will see the openings for innovation that only you uniquely can see.
But now I'm delighted to introduce Dr. Scott Blooney. He's the Senior Principal and the Chief Operating Officer at Kavinsky, Dasik, and Blooney. Dr. Blooney has a wide range of intellectual property expertise, but it has a particular focus on medical technologies and life science patent matters. Please join me in warmly welcoming Dr. Scott Blooney.
Why do we do this? Why do we protect innovation? Well, there's the obvious, right? We want to protect the resources dedicated to developing a new technology. We don't want the competition to just rip us off, right? If it takes $1 billion to develop a new pharmaceutical, why on earth would anybody do that if after the product is launched, it can be reverse engineered and copied by someone else? Really, they wanted to change the world, and that's really what it's all about. And if you don't secure your intellectual property rights at the outset, I would propose that that's almost an impossible objective, because you won't be able to secure funding, you won't be able to protect what you have, and if there isn't a reward for what you're doing to yourself or to the others out there, then it's just, you're not going to have the resources to make that a reality. As mentioned during last night's lecture, we are now a first-to-file country. So the law changed in the United States in 2013, or effectively in 2013. that makes us first to file, meaning if you are the first one to the patent office with your application claiming a certain invention, you are entitled to get that patent. Products that can be easily reverse engineered in competitive business environments, computer equipment, communication equipment, semiconductors, electronics, all of these things. You know, these are industries that live and die on patents. Have to have a patent to succeed. If you don't have a patent covering your innovation, you're not going to make it, in my opinion. Understanding the infringement exposure. So great, you have your own patents, you're protected, fantastic. You know, what about the other guy? Has that been a part of your business plan? It should be. Because if you are not apprised of what's waiting for you when you commercialize, you may be in for a rude awakening. And your investors, especially the more money you're asking for, the more sophisticated will be the investor, and they will ask the question about what is the freedom to operate position. Freedom to operate meaning when you launch your product, are you going to infringe someone else's intellectual property? It's really important. We've all seen them. There are probably, I don't know, 100 in this room. The purpose of a trademark is to identify the source of the good or the service, right? So when a consumer sees the trademark, they think of the origin. They think of the company that provided it, that sold it, manufactured it, whatever. You know, if you're in the business of, and I'll talk about industries where this is important, and you're coming up with trademark names, the more arbitrary, the better. It's going to be more protectable. If your trademark describes what the product is or what your company does, it's not going to be very protectable, because then someone else launches a similar product. The consumer, all they know is, you know, what is the product and what is the trade name, and if the trade name matches what the product is, you can't really identify the source of the good. You know, this is an example of again, you know, something we heard last night was how we have more and more brands going to fewer and fewer companies. So all of these food brands are condensed in these 10 companies in the middle here. Another important area of intellectual property law, and maybe I think gaining in importance. You know, these are works of authorship fixed in a tangible medium of expression, including software code. Software code is protectable by copyright, the specific source code. Other than that, you know, of course, literary, musical, dramatic, pictorial, graphic, all of this stuff is copyrightable. So trade secrets, it had been a matter of state law. So are trademarks. I don't know if it's worth mentioning. Okay. Definition varies from state to state, but generally a trade secret is any information where the owner has taken reasonable steps to keep it secret, and that's hard to do, by the way. It's harder than you might think. And there's some independent economic value that's derived from that information. The nice thing about trade secrets, or the desirable thing about trade secrets, is they can last forever. But the downside is once they're gone, they're gone. You can't, once a trade secret is made public for whatever reason, someone comes through your office, you know, and isn't under an obligation to keep it secret, and they see a trade secret, whatever it is, lying on your desk. That trade secret now no longer exists. That is not protectable intellectual property, right? Because the downside of a patent is it expires, and also you're telling the world about it. So part of the quid pro quo with the government's giving you 20 years of monopoly with a patent. You're going to produce in a written document and provide for everyone to see in the publication of the patent, how do you make this thing, how do you use it, right? So it enables competitors to use the technology in a non-competing way, or a non-infringing way, I should say. And that's what you get in exchange, or what the government, society gets in exchange for the monopoly. Trade secrets, you know, they last forever. You keep them internally. There's no disclosure of it. You know, with that, this last slide, you know, I think just keep in mind, you know, we're doing this to change the world, and keep intellectual property in mind, because if you don't have it, you're not going to be able to achieve that objective.
Ms. Torian is a successful serial entrepreneur, author, and the founder of Bell Rock Capital, where she serves as the firm's president and chief investment officer. We're grateful to have our expertise on the investment committee for the endowment fund of the college. Please join me in warmly welcoming Ms. Torian.
I created something of value. I created a brokerage firm. And so in and of itself, that had value. So we took it offline and we made it into a boutique investment bank, leveraging all of our knowledge in the banking sector. You might have ADD like I do, because some of the greatest entrepreneurs in the world do. I think it's a blessing, not a curse, actually, because it does help you spark creativity. You just have to learn how to control it. Every penny counts. Everybody in my company, in Bell Rock Capital, I don't care if it's my assistant, my chief operations officer, whoever they are, even if they're a cost center, I strive to make them a profit center. Go out and get a job first, to get yourself experience, make mistakes on somebody else's dime, which was what my father wanted me to do, and he was right, and also to create contacts. You don't have any real business contacts when you leave school, so then you have to decide whether you want to keep growing by reinvesting back into your business. Some of the decisions I've made are in order to make sure that at the end of the day, I have something of value to sell to somebody else. I mean, there's a whole kind of list of due diligence you have to go through before you determine, A, am I right, it's a decent company? And then the secondary question is, B, is now the right time to invest in that company? Because you can have really good companies, but it's not always the right time to buy the stock. Like Tesla. A Japanese concept meaning a reason for being. Everyone, according to the Japanese, has an ikigai. Finding it requires a deep and often lengthy search of self. Such a search is regarded as being very important, since it is believed that discovery of one's ikigai brings satisfaction and meaning to life. It's not always about picking the thing that's going to make you the most money. That's important, but it should intersect with something you're interested in. And I think last but not least is always be of good character.
Pleased to introduce my friend Chris Kane. In 2009, he founded Mercator 21. Chris is a visionary. There's so many things that we've learned from him over the years, way ahead of the... So please welcome back to campus, Chris Kane.
So I'm going to share with you 5 questions that I think you should ask yourself and others if you are going to be an entrepreneur. So here's the first one. What is the problem you're solving for people? You have to solve a problem in order to start a business. And that problem has to help somebody live an easier or better life. An aspect of that is your solution for people going to be global? You're going to be able to offer this solution globally? Is it bounded by national borders, or is it just a local solution? All of them are fine. It's just a choice. I want you to think about how you want to make that choice. You've identified the problem you want to solve for people. Who's going to pay? Okay. Who is going to pay? So as you think about what problem you're solving, it is critically important in order to be successful. You have clarity on who pays. Because only if you know clearly who pays will you know how to create value for that person who's making the decision to spend money on you and what you have to offer as an entrepreneur. Question number 3, what is unique about your business? What are you offering? Are you offering a disruptive business model, or are you offering a disruptive technology that could be used by people to create a business model? Might be interesting, to create this technology, but it might not be necessary or compelling. By the way, Steve Jobs, totally disruptive business model, not disruptive technology. All the technology he brought to the marketplace, by and large, were new packaging of existing technologies and created a new business model. The whole concept of the iPod initially, probably some of you don't even remember what an iPod was, but it was a different business model for music. This goes to the question of what is unique about your business. All right? Is your intellectual property, is it embodied in an intangible asset or a tangible asset? It's a very important distinction in today's world, especially in a globally integrated economy. It is today that a company like Uber has been able to go to 70 different countries and over like 400 cities in the world in the course of 6 years, where it took the IBM company 70 years to be able to operate in 120 countries. So you have to ask yourself the question, when you're answering the question, this is what's unique about my business, is it grounded in an intangible asset, a tangible asset, or a combination of both? And if it's a combination of both, what are the percentages that make up your asset profile? Can you sell and support your business using e-commerce? All right. And if the answer is no, that's fine. I think it would be a mistake. There's always a dimension of e-commerce that can be applied to your business to give you scale and reach. All right, fifth question. How ready and willing are you to change course as an entrepreneur? And the true successful entrepreneurs are the ones who have the capacity to say, I'm going to pivot because I want to satisfy the need that exists in the marketplace, as opposed to I want to take my idea and stuff it down somebody's throat. But the most important determining factor for me to invest is the ability of that business leader or entrepreneur to be flexible and to pivot away from their ego-created vision of the future.
Carl Schramm discussed today's entrepreneurial landscape, including an admonition to augment your education with training and experience before starting a business. He mentioned that the average age is 39. Scott Blooney told us that what we should do is be very careful with our intellectual property, that it has real value. In addition, he let us know how much it costs and what steps can be taken to protect your intellectual property. Cassandra Torian gave us her life lessons as a bootstrap entrepreneur. And finally, Chris Kane, who we just heard, gave us multiple dimensions of 5 fundamental questions to consider when deciding whether or not you should start a business. So to close, I want to thank the students who volunteered and made this possible. And finally, on behalf of the Gladstone T. Whitman 49 Endowment Fund, Policy Studies and Economics 339, and the Policy Studies Program, thank you very much for coming to this short conference, The Essentials of Entrepreneurship.